This is eerily quiet, so I'm going to break the silence barrier.
I was just getting ready to say, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yay, there's video. We can see people.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sally Cohen.
Hi.
Hello, Sally.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, I see you, Sherry, on the chat. It's not
Hi, Emily.
Who said hello to me?
Sally.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Oh, it's so good to see you too. How have you been?
Everything is good. How is the baby? How is Emma?
Good. Emma's so good. She's getting a little personality. She's almost 3 months now, so it's hard to believe time has gone by so fast, but she's a sweet little thing.
Like the mama.
Oh, thank you. I'll tell her dad you said that.
Oh, thank you.
I have a picture while we're just killing some time. It's a really cute bath time picture. Has nothing to do with market realities, but it'll be a great way to start us off.
Oh,
Very nice.
It's
It has
just
nothing
why
to do
my
with-
mom will never be on a Zoom meeting with us.
it has nothing to do with market realities, but everything to do with real world realities.
Baby reality.
It's incredible
sure.
how they grow so fast. Believe me, I have a 17 years old and a 14.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I know Todd just sent his baby off to college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
One more year for me.
I'm gonna get a dog.
Good idea.
Yeah, I need a dog. I want a dog really bad. This has been like an eye opener for me. And I think I want a big dog.
Wow.
That all of the, well, not all, but many of the dog shelters are empty or close to empty, which is awesome. But I'm sure that there's always room for one more home. So, and I'm
Jenny,
sure
I want a hyperallergenic dog. So I'm gonna have to wait for it to be birthed. And I think it'll be worth it. I want a Portuguese water dog.
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty big and heavy and muscular and beautiful. So I'm glad you have a baby, Emily, but I'm gonna have to get a dog. Those days have passed, the boat sailed.
Well, a dog will be less maintenance and
No.
No,
No. I have a dog and I spend more money in my dog than in my girls. No way.
Oh my goodness. That
Oh
is
my
one
gosh,
spoiled
awesome.
puppy.
Yeah, my dog demands a lot of jobs. Like, between cooking and special food and treats and never is enough.
Oh my goodness.
Speaking of demanding, it's 3 o'clock and time waits for no one. So if you would, please, if you feel comfortable, please turn on your video. We would love to see you. If not, that's totally fine. You can listen and take notes and multitask. And also, if you don't mind, just placing yourself on mute, because while we love dogs and babies and doorbells, it's a little distracting to hear them in the background, especially when we're presenting. So thanks for your courtesy on that. And I don't know about you, but I had to start, both Todd and I, if you could see us do a standing ovation or like a, a wave or something, virtually kind of takes it off of the way that we'd like to present it. But huge kudos to every single one of you for the incredible production, effort, and commitment to excellence. What we're going to share today, you'll see, is a result of your hard work every single day. And we're super proud of your commitment and super proud of the results. So way to go. You guys rock. I love it. And yet you still carved out time to join us today. So we're pretty psyched about that. And I'm going to turn it over to our fearless statistician. Boy, that's hard to say in reality. So Todd, get us kicked off.
All right. Well, thank you. And yeah, echo Jenny's sentiments there. You know, you guys came out like gangbusters in June. You followed it up in July with another stellar month, and August is shaping up to be just as impressive as the previous two. So we can't thank you enough for your continued efforts as we all kind of learn the new normal and are adjusting quite well, I think. You know, it's interesting that real estate seems to be one of the silver linings throughout all of this, and has kind of been defying a lot of what I think the prognosticators thought might happen in the ensuing months. So it's good for us to be in an industry that I think is contributing so much to our country, to the economy, and everything else. So just know that you guys play a significant role in your daily endeavors with regards to all of that. And before I kind of start us off, I would love for you guys to use the little chat feature and just kind of give us a sense of what you're feeling in the marketplace. I kind of have an idea, but are multiple offers becoming more in vogue, or and what's going on in terms of conversations you're having with sellers, listings, so forth and so on. So just go in and type in anything in there. I'd love to kind of see, Jenny and I love to get a temperature for the group in terms of what's been going on, because we'll give a few more minutes. I know that Zoom, you know, crashed on all days of days, but Monday when a lot of institutions and everything else got going, so others might be having a little difficulty getting online, because we had about 100 or so signed up for today's webinar. We got about 50 on there. So anybody kind of want to talk about anything? I don't see anything in the chat right now. So what's going on in the market? Anyone? Do you see anything, Jenny? There we go. Despite being as aggressive as we could be, my client has lost out twice due to multiple offers. That's not the first time I've heard that, Tim. And I'm going to share something with you guys that you might find interesting in terms of what's happened over the last 30 days as far as pricing and stuff has gone. Anything else? No? You guys are just so busy you can't even... Let's see. Aggressive price increases seem to be stalling in certain markets. Yeah, we're going to take a look. We're going to throw in a little bit of the attached market this time around, to kind of see that we do have a little bit of a tale of two markets going on right now. So, well, let me go ahead and get my screen shared here, and we will jump right into this. Let's see. All right. All right, Jenny, can we see the...
Yep, looking good. You might need to,
so the full screen,
perfect.
right?
Yep,
All
you're
right.
in good shape.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of starting off like we typically do, and we're going to take a look at what's kind of happened in the last 90 days versus the first quarter. So this will be kind of like the second half of the second quarter compared to the first quarter. And as soon as we get through the second quarter, we will do a comparison of second quarter to third quarter of the last 90 days. But as you can see, as it's no surprise, we saw a significant uptick in the number of closings in the last 90 days compared to the first quarter. And we've also seen kind of a reduction, still a maintaining of that reduction in the average percentage of homes requiring a price reduction to attract an offer. Still running typically in the mid to high 20s the last 90 days versus the mid 30s to low 40s in the first quarter. So you see those numbers there across every single segment of the market. We saw significant improvement over the last 90 days. So I know that doesn't really come as any surprise to anybody. And so the key takeaway there is the percentage of price reductions in the last 90 days is still lower than the first quarter. However, the percentage of reductions over the last 90 days has increased slightly every month. And for those of you that have been participating in these on a monthly basis with us, you'll kind of remember us making the observation that we're seeing more of our active inventory having to reduce their price. And I think we're going to continue to see that trend happening. And we're going to take a look and see how that's kind of been having more of an impact, especially over the last 30 days. You want to run us through this slide, Jenny, just the sales summary for the last 30 versus the last 30 to 60, which is kind of a narrower snapshot. And I love seeing all that green on the left-hand side. And so walk us through this one.
Sure. So it's unbelievable to see the increases even in a low inventory market of sales. So that's what you can see there as far as the percentages of increases. And as Todd mentioned earlier, the price reductions, you can tell some of the differentials there. Obviously, price reductions in the last 30 days, you might think, well, do you really need to have a reduction in the last 30 days? And the answer to that is probably in the current market, yes. If it hasn't moved that quickly within the first 30 days, reducing the price is not, in fact, it's advisable. So if you haven't seen traction or movement, that tells you something.
Yeah, and that's a great point to bring up, Jenny, because one thing I was wanting to point out is take a look at the price reductions in the last 30 days versus the last 30 to 60. In most cases, over the last 30 days, just about in all cases, as a matter of fact, we've seen more price reductions in the last 30 days than we did the previous 30 to 60. So for example, in Cobb, 267 price reductions versus 206. Now, obviously that's a function too of the number of homes that have closed, which is, reflective in the green there on the left-hand side, the 11.7%, the 24%, so forth and so on. But yeah, we're seeing more price reductions in general, which again is kind of that lagging measure of the active inventory that was overpriced that did the price reduction, catching up and converting into closings. So yes, still about a little bit, you can see the percentages there, and we're going to look a little bit more of that in a moment. But again, key takeaway across all counties, there continues to be significant increases in the number of closings month over month. And you got to remember what June was like. And this is really, July and going into August, because that last 30 days was the first half of August as well. And there were minor fluctations in the percentage of price reductions. However, almost a third of all the properties still remain overpriced despite limited inventory and supply. Taking a look at the median sales price comparison, I think we're starting to see a leveling out now and maybe a little more predictability with the median price as we get continue on in these months in terms of coming out of the pandemic or the shutdown for that matter. And you kind of see what's been going on in a month over month and a year over year from the pricing, from a median sales price percentage, which I think typically is a better measure. Sometimes it tends to balance out the ebbs and the flows of selling more in the lower price range or in the upper price range. But for the month over month change, we saw about a 3% increase month over month. And then for the year over year, you kind of see some different fluctuations there and so forth. But for the most part, I think, it's right along the lines of what we've been expecting. And I still think that we're going to probably see appreciation anywhere from 4 to 8% at the end of the year when it's all said and done. And
hey, while you're on that slide, Todd,
yeah.
Let me comment on one other quick thing. I think there's a pretty big differential, and go back one more if you don't mind. There's a pretty big differential in the July 2020 versus July 2019. And those numbers, in most cases, all the way at the right, are a lot higher than the 4 to 8%. And what part of that is the strength of the luxury market coming back and influencing those numbers. So that's very helpful and very telling. But it's also very interesting because this is really, this month is the first time that we've been able to look at pre-pandemic stats compared to, I won't say post-pandemic, but basically in the heart of it. And so a lot of this data is very, very helpful for all of our clients, actually. So kudos to you, Todd, for pulling this information consistently so that we have a good baseline.
Thank you. And I think too, you know, the group hasn't heard this, but I know our leadership team has. David Alstead, you know, his observations are that we're kind of lagging behind. Basically what we're seeing is the effect of a delayed spring market. And for all of our budgeting purposes and everything else, we're trailing about a 30-day lag behind. So I think that's kind of why we're seeing these big jumps too, because, you know, with the seasonality of the market coming into the summer months, well, that kind of was our spring. So it's, you know, while we're comparing month to month, I don't think we're necessarily looking at that same snapshot in time, which is why we might be seeing a little bit of this variance from what we might typically do. So like, for example, in July, the year over year, you know, July prices were kind of slowing down typically that time of year. And so it's, you know, maybe probably take into consideration that little bit of that lag in that spring market, us getting to it. So let's see. And then just here, this is again on the regional or on the national level, but by region, you can kind of see this was the latest existing home prices coming out from NAR. And the previous month, these weren't quite as high, but you can kind of see just in general, the whole country now has come up and out, whereas that wasn't the case a couple of months ago with the South at 4.1% and the West Coast at 5.5%. And then we also too look at the case Schiller, something that we always have been doing. And again, this is a lagging measure. It's a 2-month lag more or less. And we should be getting the next one out in the next week, which would be for June's numbers here in August. But saw a slight drop in May from April from 4% to 3.7%, but still right along in that wheelhouse of what we're expecting for the year end of anywhere from a 4 to 8%. The next thing we're going to take a look at, and we're not going to go through all of these slides one by one, but I will kind of move through them and maybe point out a few things, and Jenny, jump in if there's anything that jumps out at you. But this is just really for you guys to use depending on where your market area is. But one thing that I will have you guys take a look at or notice is we're still running around a 21-day days on market for homes under 500,000. That has not changed probably in the last almost year, pandemic or no pandemic. So that's for non-price reduced homes. For those that require a price reduction, you're going to see some fluctuation and some variance as we go through the different counties, but it's typically anywhere to a 60 to 70 day spread. And so we're just going to kind of go through some of these. Jenny, the next slide though, why don't you touch on what we're seeing in terms of month supply and the total days on market kind of starting to balance out.
Sure. I don't know about you, but you might want to clear your eyes or rub them a little because the numbers are accurate, but they're really hard to believe. And I mean, when you look at month supply under 500 and you see a 1, that's just kind of crazy talk. Hey, go back. Wait, where were we?
I'm just moving through just to kind of get through them all. So like you got a 0.9
Okay.
here. Yeah. So
I thought you were just crazy driving there for a second. Stay on the road, Todd. And then obviously you can see even the luxury market at 5.5, and you can continue to scroll as you work. So I think that's a great idea. But basically almost every single area is under a 6-month, which most economists consider to be a balanced market. Obviously at 1 or 2, it's way under the balanced market level. So pretty interesting. You can see Fulton County here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but I think the only county that had more units closed in the first quarter was Cherokee, whereas all the remaining kind of in the main metro areas have had more in the last 90 days or the second quarter.
That'd be correct. Yeah. And the other thing too, as we're going through these slides, it's crazy that, you know, in a month's time, it's amazing what happened with all that pending activity from really May and June into July, the impact it's had, especially on the upper end. You alluded to it earlier, 4.8 month supply in the million plus in Fulton County. And we were like over 10 2 months ago. And that's a function of good appetite for that product type and also supply. And then the other thing to note too, as we're going through these slides, is looking at the total days on market. They really have kind of narrowed. Those were some pretty big deltas from one quarter to the next, and we've really narrowed that gap. So a 1 month supply of under 500 in Forsyth, exact number total days on market year over year, the total days on market narrowing to for the 500 to a million, and you kind of see that trend line continuing. And then again, the whole 500 to a million, we're running at about anywhere from 45 to 50 days, typically days on market. Looking at Gwinnett, Gwinnett seems to be a county that is a little bit lagging, especially in the upper end. You can kind of see that 15.6 month supply of over a million, but still anything, you know, I can't believe it's a 0.9 month supply of inventory in several of our counties for the last 30 days. So why don't you run us through these takeaways, Jenny?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously under 500, it's low across the board as far as inventory. And that's where we're going to see tons of multiple offers. I know that several of you commented in the chat about that, and that's what you're seeing, and that's what the stats bear out. For that 500 to a million, June and July were huge pending months. And so now what we're seeing is the shortages are growing, and it's even more of a seller's market than before. A shift to a balanced market, the million plus price ranges, and a significant drop in total days on market. Obviously for all of the reasons that we've already talked about, but interestingly, over the last 30 days, the trend has continued lower, and certainly the gap is narrowing. So here, I don't even know what month we're on. I kind of lost track, but 21 days, still the average total days on market.
Yep. Let's take a quick look too and what's going on with the current inventory. And this is where it gets really interesting and where you're probably feeling the pain, so to speak, especially for those of you that are working with buyers and are getting into multiple offer situations on multiple occasions for multiple properties. But just a quick snapshot of kind of where we are and where we were a year ago as far as inventory goes. And we've got two counties now, Forsyth and Gwinnett, where we're over a 50% shortage of inventory compared to where we were a year ago, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Then to the right of that, the number of price reductions. Here's the interesting thing. I keep harping on it, but I just, you know, want to impress upon the fact that even though there's a limited supply of inventory, doesn't mean that sellers can just come in and price properties way above what current market value is. And you see the number of price reductions there, and this is current inventory. So the active inventory on the market, we're running well above what the closed percent reduction was, which again tells me we've got a lot of overpriced property out there in the market. So, and then the withdrawals and the holds, not a lot's changed there. The number of withdrawals is more or less below what the number was for the previous month, all except for Cherokee at 64 versus 60. So not a lot of people pulling their houses off the market, and you know, at least they're reducing from where they were the previous month. This is just a summary of the 6 core counties, just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. And the things to point out here are the new listings taken. It's 6237 is below the same time period last year of 7,039, running about the same for June. But the big picture, which is kind of summarizing what we just looked at there, is the total number of properties for sale. If we compare the first 22 days of August of this year to last year, we're down 44%. I wouldn't let the number of sold scare you. I think that's just a timing issue more than anything else, and I expect that number to come up. And the real positive too is the pipeline up at 18.4%. So any perspective to add to looking at this, Jenny?
Yeah, I think you all may know that our company had the 3rd largest month of pending sales in our entire history in the month of July. And that's pretty significant across any month. So for 90 years, it's the third largest endings ever. And who would have thought that would have happened in the middle of COVID? So we expect August and September, that momentum will continue to carry. And as you can see from the stats, the demand is certainly there.
Yeah, something else just kind of to note too, a 1.5 month supply of inventory compared to 2.6 a year ago. So still definitely a seller's market. Again, this is across all across the 6 core counties, all price points. And then another thing too is the pended. Based on the pended activity, it's a 1.4 month supply and an absorption rate of 72%. So in other words, we're absorbing 72% of the market, the listings that come on the market on a monthly basis, which is just insane. Look at what it was even a year ago at 39.1%. So lots of buyer activity out in the market trying to gobble up the inventory that's out there.
Yeah, this might be a real quick time to mention one thing. It's always been an interesting debate about, do you want to take a listing if it's overpriced and not in the right condition? And no, nobody wants to take a listing if it's overpriced and not in the right condition. But given the current situation, if you have a seller that's highly motivated, and you know, that is certainly some components to talk through with them. Because I think personally, my viewpoint is if the condition is good and they're unrealistic about price, but they're motivated, that can change. And you wouldn't want to miss an opportunity in a low inventory market.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that at all. And then just takeaways from the slides we just looked at. A significant undersupply of inventory across all price points in the 6 core counties compared to 2019. And literally over the last 30 days, there was a shortfall of 30% in July. It's 40% now in August. A 10% jump is pretty significant for a 30-day period of time. The biggest shortage remains in those homes priced under 500. It's a 52.8% decline year over year. And then the number of new listings at the 500 to $1 million actually went up around 10% year over year, which is good because we're replenishing that to keep up with that demand. However, the total number of homes available is still about 33% of where it was last year. And then even at that upper end, over $1 million, the number of new listings increased 25% year over year, but we're still 15% below inventory levels from the previous year. So it's good that we're bringing the stuff on the market. It's just not at the pace to keep up with the demand or where we were last year. So listings are going to continue to be the key to winning at this game. And I just know you love this next slide, Jenny, and they've heard us say it 3 months in a row now, but I think it's worth repeating.
Yeah, I'm glad that you can read my mind, because that is absolutely true. We've talked about multiple offer situations, and real quick on that, I've loved engaging with you all in sales meetings, and some of the interesting topics I hear are, you know, how to win those multiple offer situations, or, you know, things like escalation clauses. And just to comment about that, if you're going to have an escalation clause because your client demands it, or you think it's the right, you know, situation given all the other scenarios, just make sure that you have a due diligence period, because if there's no cap, you got to have some sort of out. Let's see what else. It's imperative that your buyers take advantage of the full loan approval guarantee by Prosperity. And I keep hearing from people inside our organization and outside our organization, you know, people that are in real estate closing firms, that Prosperity delivers over and over again, and they can be counted on to meet those closing deadlines. And in the fast-paced market that we're in, that is huge, especially because there's often a domino effect of closings. So you all have been amazingly supportive of Prosperity, and I think that's contributed to our ability to recover from this sooner than most other companies and industries. So huge thanks. And then last, InstaList. It's my favorite thing because I think it's the solution that will help our clients, have opportunities and have more confidence in feeling like they'll have a place to go while they're considering selling their home.
Great. Again, this is just a breakdown by county. Not going to spend a lot of time again on this. However, I will just point out that the thing that's helpful here that we've been including in the last couple of months is what the average price reduction has been across each different price segment. And those have been running about the same since I've been adding these in as the slide. So not a huge change there, maybe a swing of $1,000 or two here or there, especially 500 and below, maybe a little bit higher in the 500 and above. The million, it fluctuates depending on what happened from the previous month. But again, you can kind of see where we are with the price reductions, and no surprise, for the most part, the percentage of price reductions for all properties under 500, regardless of county, are significantly lower than the 500 to $1 million and the $1 million and above. And the interesting thing is, as I go through this, in a lot of cases, it's that 500 to $1 million that seems to have to go through the most change in terms of a reduction in sale price. And maybe it's just because too, those people at $1 million and above, maybe they aren't quite have that urgency to sell, or they just are willing to wait it out and bear the market. But as we go through this and look at this, you'll notice that for the most part, the 500 to $1 million is that area where we see this most homes doing the price reductions that is currently on the market. So here, for example, Forsyth, only 20% have reduced the price, and almost 38%, the 500 to $1 million. And again, it holds true through every single county, that's where we're seeing the most movement, is in that 500 to $1 million. So if you'd like to run us through the takeaways here, Jenny.
Absolutely. Slight dip in the number of active listings that have experienced a price reduction, obviously probably because of increased demand. Moving towards percent price reductions for homes closed over the last 30 days as a result of the following. Sellers are getting a little more aligned with what buyers are willing to pay, hopefully because of the guidance of great professionals like you all. Homes still need to appraise, and sellers realize that they can push the prices, but that's sort of a reality check mechanism, and lack of inventory is propping up prices in general. And then despite all of this, price reductions are still several points above actual closings.
Great. Yeah, I think that appraisal, hearing more and more about from our broker team of folks dealing with appraisals coming in below what the contract price is. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as I share some interesting data points of things I just pulled up today. So let's take a quick look at what's happening with pending inventory. This is what we can expect, kind of like the future looking glass in terms of what we might see over the next 30 days. I just put this here because, again, this was a slide from the previous month, and I wanted to give some reference to kind of where we were back in July and the change that we've seen just in 30 days. So burn this into your memory, and we're going to flip forward here. And this is actually what it looks like right now. So again, significant improvement from August, from July. And then if we look at August 1st through the 23rd of this year compared to previous year, we really are starting to see, again, that continued pipeline maintaining and being full, which again, you alluded to earlier, Jenny, with regards to just, what we're foreseeing, in terms of an August for us as a company and for the market in general. So this is, again, very, very positive to see. And again, just kind of like an indicator of just the demand that's out there in the marketplace. And then here we'll take a look at just the pending inventory comparison, just showing you what has happened over the last 30 days versus the second quarter. This is an adjustment from the slides from the last couple of months where I was looking at first quarter data. So we're really starting to pull in some second quarter information. And the biggest thing here is you'll notice that the total days on market has tightened up, along with the percentage of the price reductions. So we're starting to see a little bit more of a balance come to the market versus what was happening in the first quarter. And that trend continues more or less through every single county. You want to go over this one real quick, Jenny? And this was the last month. And again, I did this so people could kind of remember where we were 30 days ago. So this
Yeah,
is what
so it's a good time to be in the South, right? I mean, we're the only region on the plus side a month ago, and as you can see here, pretty huge differential comparatively. Still a great time to be in the South. From I think we were at 1.9 to 10.3. Others are catching up, and that's good for the overall market, but certainly continuing strength in our region.
Yeah, and no surprise, the Northeast still kind of lagging behind with the shelter in place and how they got hit so hard earlier this year, which is why we kind of still see them below. So, takeaways, Jenny?
Yeah, go back one second if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Some of you may hear bits and pieces about, are people leaving cities and going to suburbs or exurbs or whatever. And what we're typically seeing is that that's happening in major cities like New York, Chicago, San Francisco, et cetera. And the governor of New Hampshire was quoted as saying, hey, folks in New York, when you leave, whoever's last, turn the light out. And obviously that's a pretty big statement, but the point is that in the South, generally our affordability is stronger than most other locations. And so I think that's bearing fruit for us here, and certainly our weather and so many of the amenities and schools and all those things that make living here great is coming to fruition for us, and it's a good time for opportunities for us.
Absolutely.
But the key takeaways, July continued to be a significant pending month, as we're going to see in August when the closings occur. Total days on market are still lower than the averages in the second quarter, and when we were rebounding from the stay in place. The gap between price reductions, 30 days versus second quarter, is tighter. And will this become the new average? That remains to be the question. Or will the percentages rise again as sellers continue to test the market? And we'll be watching that closely to share with you all and for you all to share with us.
Great. So next we're going to jump into just some other trends and info. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. And Jenny, you haven't even seen this because I added it at the last minute. So I won't ask you to speak on it. Okay. How's that sound? Fair enough?
Sounds good.
All right. So I took a look. I was just kind of curious to see what's been going on. And in the last 30 days in the 6 core counties, there were a total of 4,189 single family sales. So detached properties only. This does not include condos and townhomes. We're going to talk about condos and townhomes in a moment here. But of those, 393 were new construction or under construction. Now, this is only an FMLS, and I recognize that there's a lot more property out there that is new construction that we're not capturing through FMLS, but it's really the only place that I have been pulling from. But that is 9.4% of the market. So almost 10% of the total sales in FMLS were new construction. And again, that's going to be on the low end. So I know that that number is going to be significantly higher if you were to, add in everything that FMLS doesn't capture. But here's where it got really kind of interesting. Of the remaining 3,796 homes that were resale properties, classified as resale properties in FMLS, 969 of them closed at a price above the original list price. So that's 25% of the market. Now, I know sometimes that probably is happening during the negotiation, and instead of doing something, they raise the sale price maybe to offset some repairs or some due diligence things. But I also know that of that 25%, that's probably multiple offer situations where the people are coming in above asking price. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. It was, as I've been pulling my data, typically I don't see a lot of those numbers at the top of of my Excel spreadsheet. I'm always looking for the price reductions, but this jumped out at me this month, and I just thought I would share it with the group. Now, probably not something to go out and publicly share that 25% of all sellers are getting above their original list price, but it's just something to be mindful of and something that we will watch over the next couple of months to kind of see what happens there. So what do you think about that, Jenny, since you didn't even see that? Does that surprise you at all, that number?
It makes me want to sell my house. I'm just. Anybody else?
Todd.
No, I mean, that's a really interesting stat. And, you know, when the metrics are right, when you've got that magic formula, great condition, you could probably test the market a bit, but you don't want to test it too much because then you miss multiple offers. So it's quite a fine line.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when you think about 25% sold above asking price, but yet you've got around 30% that have to do a price reduction. It kind of almost is like a third, a third, a third. A third are really, pricing it compellingly enough to where it's driving multiple offers. A third are probably right there where it's competitive, where they're competing, and then a third are out of alignment of the market, so they're having to reduce. So, did I hear a question, John? Did you?
Yeah, I was just saying that I felt like seeing things coming on the market lately that people are being a little bit more reasonable with pricing. And so I think that's probably part of the increase is I feel like that people are getting a little bit more reasonable and they're not pushing too far. They're pushing, but they're not going way outside the boundaries in certain price points.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think too, for those of you who are getting ready to go on listing appointments and stuff, there is, I think, a lot of merit to having a conversation around, look, if we get, compelling with our price here, the reality is we might, create a situation where we actually get more and, we get you out of here in a pretty quick time frame and actually get you more than what we thought we might, but we can't just push the envelope so high that we're turning people away. So I think it's just one of those things that you're going to have that conversation with, understand their motivation and everything else when it comes to helping them price the house. So wanted to just quickly too, because I got asked this question last month and went ahead and actually did a little class with the in-town office about what's been going on specifically with attached property types, specifically in the Buckhead and kind of that midtown, downtown market area. And it was pretty revealing, and I kind of think it cemented what many of those agents were feeling in terms of what's been going on with the attached market. And I'm specifically looking at condos right now and kind of that condensed living and everything else, going back to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, Jenny, with the whole notion of are people fleeing from the urban core and going to the suburbs and so forth and so on. And this isn't really intended to kind of like support that theory, but it is interesting to see that, while we're talking mostly about single family detached in this, in our market updates here, there is a little bit of a different story with what's going on in the condo market. And this is just a quick representation of that. I'll run through the first one, Jenny, and then you can tackle the second one. But this is basically Area 21 Buckhead. And a couple things I want to point out to you is that unlike what we've been seeing in the detached market, we're seeing the opposite in terms of the available inventory. So right now, inventory is up about 27% compared to the same time period last year. You see the difference in terms of the total number of properties for sale. We're running at about 447 versus 352 a year ago. And conversely, sales are a little bit slower. Solds are down a little bit and the pendants are down both on a month over month and a year over year basis. So again, just kind of something to keep an eye on. Definitely if you're talking to sellers that are that have homes or condos in this area that are thinking about selling, it's, they hear, I only bring this up because they hear a lot of the media and the headlines and sellers market and so forth and so on. And just to kind of give perspective on, it's a little bit different in this market. However, the bright side is that we're still just at a 5-month supply of inventory, which is really a balanced market. Now, granted, we were at a 3.2 month supply a year ago. So again, a little bit of a shift in terms of what's going on with attached versus what's going on in the detached market. So that's area 21. And then Jenny, I'll let you tackle 23 and 24, our midtown, downtown markets.
Sure. There's a similar story there, as you can see from the numbers. Obviously, the amount for sale is up about 38%, and then the solds are slightly down 12.5%, and then pendings are 9.4%. But I think feedback that we're hearing and anecdotal stories that we're seeing is across all property types, across all price points, condition is key. Pricing matters, condition rules the day. So if you have a great condo, or it's you walk in and it's a wow, it's going to sell and it's going to command the right price. So as you're talking to your potential sellers who have this product type or are in this area, you want to make sure that when you walk in, it is a wow.
For sure. And again, this isn't to say it's all doom and gloom, because if you look here, we got a 3.4 month supply of overall product versus a 2.7, but still one would argue a seller's market in the Midtown downtown area. And still we're absorbing about 30% of the overall inventory on a monthly basis. So again, it's just something to be thinking of. To your point, Jenny, you got to get it looking perfect, especially when you're competing against units in the same building that kind of have a tendency maybe to all have this same more or less package and amenities and so forth and so on. So just something to share that we added this time. So why don't you walk us through, Jenny? We had the prognosticator saying what's going to happen in the second quarter and what do we think is going to happen in the third. So we've got a review here of what happened in the second, and now what all those talking heads are saying is going to happen in the third quarter here.
Yeah, this is I love this slide and the next one. It's just amazing. The second quarter forecast is red and orange. Blah, bad, not looking good. Down 30.8%. And you can see all the different representatives there. And if you look ahead, check out what they're saying for the third quarter. Pretty significant change. Almost a 50% or more differential to their projections. 4 of the original 5 forecasters, so same entities, very, very different tune, as you'll see there, from 15 to 25% change. And then 3 additional forecasters, anywhere from 16 to about 20%.
Yeah, and the thing that's relevant and important to note here too is, they almost hit their numbers right on for the second quarter. So what they projected to happen in the second quarter more or less became our reality. So the reason this is such an exciting slide is let's just hope they were just as right as they were in the second quarter for the third quarter, because if they are, then we have a lot to look forward to in the third quarter coming up. And there's no reason to believe, we've already kind of seen some evidence of that in July and August with the performance of the market in general. So definitely a reason to be optimistic for the next two months at least. So take a quick look at buyer demand analysis and just kind of what's been going on from a buyer demand standpoint. This is a representation of coming from showing time, just kind of what was going on with the number of showings in North America, really going back to the first of the year. The red drop there is obviously when everything started to kind of hit the fan, and then you kind of see where we started coming out in May. Had a little bit of a drop off on 7/7, no surprise there, because we all know what was going on then. 4th of July was that week, so no surprise that it dropped off there. But kind of just showing you how the buyers are definitely back out in force, and again, I think that's what everybody is feeling. So, and then kind of here, whether in terms of pending contract activity or our preparatory buyer demand ratings, the various measures of demand captured in this month's survey can only be described as shockingly strong in spite of the resurgence in COVID-19 cases. So even though we see the news and we see the up and down and so forth, the buyer demand is certainly out there. Why don't you take this next one, Jenny?
Sure. You can see here that basically the housing market has recovered. This is the index that kind of measures where it's floating. Obviously, you can see the timeline at the bottom. So basically, the bottom looks like it was somewhere between end of April, beginning of May, and we're already back to where we were basically pre-pandemic.
Yeah, and if you remember, we saw that we showed you this slide last month, which was through June more or less, and we were still kind of below the dotted blue line there. But the thing that kind of this reminds me of too, you remember we talked about what the recovery might look like, Jenny. Is it going to be a U? Is it going to be a V? Is it going to be a Nike swoosh? We really didn't know. Well, this kind of looks like, you know, if you the more you tighten it up, it's going to be a V-shaped recovery. And I think we're seeing more and more of that. So that's what kind of resulted over the last couple of months. And then summer home buying season is off to a roaring start as buyers flooded into the market. Realtor.com monthly traffic hit an all-time high of 86 million unique users in June, breaking May's record of 85 unique users. So again, I know the same is probably true of Zillow's traffic. I know we've seen a bump up in our traffic just as a result of this, and also the awesome efforts that Luke and his team have been doing, getting the word out, you know, through digital marketing and everything else. This doesn't really come as a surprise. Existing home prices, just kind of showing you what happened year over year by region over the last month. The Northeast ticked up so high because they're just kind of coming up out, you know, and we had higher months prior to this in the South. So again, no surprise there. And this is kind of where we are right now at 4.1%, the existing home prices, which falls right in line with what we saw earlier on that median appreciation month over month. We were right around that 3%. So just kind of is a nice little comparison to have there. Taking a look at the percentage and change in sale prices, this was a month ago. This is what we saw last month. And again, kind of as we were starting to come up out of things, everything was a little bit low, especially at that million and below or million and above. And this is where we are this month. So the 250 to 500 is obviously where all the activity is, or majority of the activity, but across the board, we saw significant improvement in terms of the percentage in the change of the number of sales across the different price points. So again, kind of what we've been feeling over the last couple of months. And this is just something Jenny talked about this earlier in talking about buyer affordability. And Atlanta has always been an affordable market compared to other areas of the country like the West Coast, New York, Chicago, Miami, so forth and so on. But I thought this was pretty interesting, and this just came out a couple weeks ago. And Black Knight is a group that kind of is involved in the mortgage industry and does a lot of monitoring as far as what's going on there. But they have been tracking all this stuff, and it says, well, home prices have risen for 97 consecutive months. 97 months. And what's the math? 12 times 8 is 96. So 8 years. We've been if I did my math right, July's record low mortgage rates push for purchasing average price home the most affordable since 2016. So I think we heard the other day, what, 2 5/8, Jenny? Somebody got a mortgage for 2 5/8, and that's what's impacting the affordability right now. So I don't think we have too many buyers probably sitting on the fence right now, but I mean, we're probably not going to see affordability as a function of mortgage rates like we have been seeing. But, you know, we're going to see in a little bit that they're not really projecting that they're going to move a whole lot anywhere. So the buying power for those shopping for a home is up 10% year over year. And, you know, the home buyers now are able to afford nearly $32,000 more of a home than they could a year ago while keeping their monthly payment the same, which is pretty huge. And again, that's part of the function, what's driving all of this activity right now. And then each of the 25 largest markets, Atlanta being one of them, are seeing the strongest affordability in more than 2 years, with falling 30-year rates elevating buyer power for potential homeowners across the country. And I think this is, again, we talked about this before, but one thing to mention is you're working with buyers and they get into these competitive offer situations and they get so focused on the price of the house, try and reel them back in and get them more focused on what their monthly commitment is going to be to owning that property. Because I think when they look at it, it's probably going to shake itself out. So I think you wanted to say something, Jenny.
I did. It's interesting to me. The reason that I keep sort of banging the prosperity drum is, yes, I believe in what they're doing and I believe that the delivery is amazing. But beyond that, what you just shared talks about why every lender is slamming busy. I mean, they're just doing as much as they can to keep up with everything. So when I look at some of the headlines about, you know, increasing the penalty, if you will, for refis, I actually think that this is an advantage for our business, because the primary focus of our business and prosperity is purchasers, not refinance. So the fact that we are positioned and putting, you know, all of our attention, or the majority of our attention in that, will allow us to deliver a great experience for our clients. So I'm pretty proud of that, and I think it bodes well for our clients and for all of us.
Absolutely. Going back again, talking about mortgage, impacts of COVID in the mortgage world. This is the mortgage rate projections, the latest off the press. As you can see, everybody's somewhere there in the low threes, some are even at 2.9 NAR, and you kind of see the averages there and the quarters stretching out all the way to the middle of next year. So I don't think we're going to see a whole lot in the way of mortgage rates going up significantly. Who was it the other day said, Jenny, something like, my gosh, they're going to go into the fours. Oh, the horror. But, you know,
God forbid.
God forbid, right? So, and then just, again, a graphical representation of where they were and where we are and where we expect them to be. And again, you kind of see the peak still. I mentioned the fours, 4.8%. Who'd have even thought we've been thinking that was a high interest rate a couple years ago? But it is what it is. And then again, another just slide to kind of show, this will show you kind of where they were way back in several, you know, months ago and so forth, but 3.2 through the middle of next year. Talking a little bit about the minimum FICO scores, this hasn't changed significantly a whole lot. Still in that mid 750s is the requirements. But you kind of see then too a breakdown of where people are with the FICO score distribution, and about 48% of the market is below that 750 score. That's not to say that they don't have the ability to get a mortgage, but it goes on to say, and what Jenny talked about earlier, the importance of making sure your people are pre-approved and talking to your prosperity person and getting that process taken care of, because this is just kind of showing you a spread of where the different FICO scores are and where they can get their mortgages from. All loans, the 751, the conventional at 756, the FHA at 684, where I know we do a lot of work and our prosperity folks are really, really good there. So just to give you an idea. And that concludes the show. Any questions, comments, feedback, anything? And we did that in under an hour, Jenny. We're getting good at this.
Woohoo!
Let's see. Is that on top of the last numbers?
What a fantastic looking group we have today. So
I know. I'm telling you. Haley Joe got different looking though. When did Haley Joe get glasses? So that's
halfway through the day they become necessary.
No. Well, I see the other Haley Joe. Alex Page is also Haley Joe. So let's see. Let's just kind of read through some of this chat here. Still a lot of off-market sales and low inventory. Rachel couldn't agree more. Even more reason to use that Insta list when we have the opportunity. Dealing with low inventory under 650 in Lassiter School area. Valerie, not surprised at all. You saw the month supply for Cobb was in the 3.8, I think, range for 500 to a million. Rachel, is that on top of the last numbers or based off current standing? If you can expand on that, Rachel, I'm not sure where we were talking or what you meant there. Oh, Jenny already answered current standings. Was the first part of the petition just detached? Yes, it was, Matt. All of that was just detached up until I started talking about the condos. Let's see. Lisa, you're welcome. We enjoy doing this. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We appreciate you too. Just so you know, so you can be on the lookout, we are going to take a break next month. And because I really feel like we're going to see similar trends from August sales into September. And I just kind of want to get to the point where we can do a second quarter comparison to a third quarter comparison. And not to say that it's because I want to get out of the work, because that's not what it is. But instead, what I'm going to do is going to offer just some live webinars by region, similar to what I did for the in-town office. And I will be at your disposal for an hour and a half and just crunch whatever data you want me to crunch. So we will get those times out to you, and it'll just be a free-for-all. It'll be, what do you want to look at? What do you want to, take a look at in terms of, I'm not going to go like to Gwinnett County to Cobb County. I'll have a Cobb region, a North Fulton region. We'll do some stuff in town, but look for those dates that will be coming out from Terry and the group, and just sign up. And if you can join us, great. If you can't, I'll record the sessions and then you can just take away with it whatever you want, but it won't be the fancy pretty slides like you see here. We'll just be getting the raw data and then you can do with it as you will. So anything you'd like to close this out with, Jenny?
I would. I have actually two very important comments. One, John Patrick, your puppy is adorable. What a fun way to end this. And secondly, huge thanks, Todd, for pulling this information. You do such a great job every month. And thanks to all of you for your time and commitment to excellence. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.